Hello and welcome to another episode of Football Manager Therapy. I'm your host, Rich Owens, and Happy New Year. Welcome. It's 2023. New year, probably the same old us. I'm delighted to be joined by my wonderful friends for the first time this year. It's the FM team. It's Kev, it's Jeb. Look at their beautiful little faces. If you're listening to this, you can't, but if you're watching it, you can. Wonderful, wonderful people. Kev, how are we, mate? I've missed you terribly.
I've missed you fantastically. I've done it better than you. What can I say? Anybody that's listening to this rather than watching it, you've definitely made the right choice, can I say? But yeah, I'm good. I'm really good. Happy New Year to you officially, even though we've, text spoke occasionally and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, really good festive season, really good start to the new year. Mostly, we'll talk about FM later. But other than that, all great. Thank you. Really happy to be back.
Good. And it's lovely to have you back. This is going to sound really weird, and I promise it's a compliment. We were watching some New Year's festivities at a friend's house over the festive period, and there was a guy on the TV who was described by one of my friends as like the human equivalent of a therapy dog. And it got me thinking. I was like, is there anybody who would actually be beneficial to people's mental health in real life? And then after a few drinks, I was convinced that if I phoned the NHS and said, look, if you started like getting GPs to prescribe half-hour weekly chats with Kev just about anything, everybody would just feel better. Like, I realized that when I've been feeling a bit grumpy, it's because I've just not properly sat down and spoken to Kev for a couple of weeks. So, mate, I'm delighted to be sat here with you this morning.
You need to have a conversation with my wife, because she'll give you a whole different perspective.
So, no, it's different at home. He's only 95% as nice as he is on the internet. Oh, it's hell. It's hell. And an equally lovely person. Jeb, you're here and I'm delighted. How are you, mate? How's it going?
Yeah, I'm not so bad. I wonder where you were going with that New Year's story. I thought you were going to bring up Gabrielle was on Jules Holland, and I thought of you immediately. I thought that's where I was going to go. I thought we were going to go dreams can come true. We're going to go all the way down the line. Give it a little more time, it might get there. Right. Yeah, I'm all right. I'm all right. It's Saturday morning, so we've had a busiest week already doing playoffs. Myself and Kev, obviously Kev on the panel, myself doing stuff in the background and then doing drafts and crafts. So got a busy weekend ahead, but I think I'm really been looking forward to getting back on the FM team, bringing back our lovely podcast loveliness. I think that's where we are. But lovely to see you as well. I hope you're well. You're well as well.
Yeah.
Thanks, mate. Yeah, I'm good. It's just I'm enjoying the silence. Having 2.5 weeks off with a very, very young family over Christmas time, it can get a little bit noisy. So moments like this are an absolute joy. I shut the door to my little office, and I know that for at least the next hour to an hour and a half, nobody's going to come and ask me for a snack. So I'm living my best life. My absolute best life.
I think that's our opportunity to go for one in it, Jeb, and just become
can I have a snack,
children
please?
of the
Can
podcast.
you get a snack?
Are we finished yet? Are we there yet?
No,
Rich, can we have a snack?
No, you didn't eat your breakfast. So sorry.
I did eat my breakfast. How dare you? I had Cocoa Pops like a full-time adult I am.
Yeah, Cocoa Pops are Rice Krispies, but for people who can't handle reality. There you go. That's half a Peep Show quote. Enjoy. There we go. Well, it's lovely to be back. But the reason that we're here, fundamentally, the reason that we're here, we talk FM, we have a good time, we have some fun. We enjoy virtual spreadsheets. But before we get going, I think collectively we would just like to acknowledge the fact that unfortunately it's been a bit of a sad start to the year in terms of real life football. News has broken recently that unfortunately we've lost one of the greats. Gianluca Vialli unfortunately passed away earlier this week, and it's a bit rubbish, really. I think collectively, we as a community, a lot of the older members of the community, we grew up watching, be it 90s Italian football, be it kind of that late 90s Premier League era, where, we had played like Vialli at Chelsea. Obviously, he was prolific at playing clubs like Sampdoria and Juventus. And it's just a bit of a sad one. it's just hit home a little bit. So collectively, I think from all of us here at FMT, we'd just like to, shout out Gianluca Vialli. What a guy, what a player. Rest in power. I mean, fellas, do either of you have any, special Gianluca Vialli memories? As I say, you are of a, we're all of a similar kind of age in our mid-20s. But I think we've seen enough clips, shall we say? Definitely not live. Of the great Gianluca Vialli. It's a bit of a rubbish one, isn't it, fellas?
Jeb,
Yeah,
do you
for
want to
sure.
go?
Yeah. I think if anyone could define a shirt, it's Gianluca Vialli. I think Gianluca Vialli and Roberto Mancini, that Sampdoria blue ERG with the stripe, that was the shirt that I always remembered Vialli in. Obviously, off clips off YouTube because I'm 24 years old. We've been over this many times, but it's that kind of defined it that way. And I think one of the things that I said earlier, and I think I said in a couple of private chats, I never thought Graham Souness would get me emotional, but his tribute to him was wow. Yeah, like Graham Souness, he obviously played with him to the tail end of his career when he went over to Italy, and Gianluca was 20 years old, I think, at the time. But like I said, I think he just basically honoured the man rather than the footballer of just what a wonderful person he was. And I think there was, I kind of ended up going on a clip like wormhole yesterday, and then I think it was the Mancini and Vialli hugging after they won the Euros. Wow, yeah, the emotion that's there. It's he was a fantastic striker, he was a fantastic footballer, and by all accounts, a wonderful, wonderful human being.
Yeah, I mean, I was there for Channel 4 Italian football many years ago with James Richardson and all that kind of crowd doing it, and watching the Italian Serie A, kind of probably for the first time at that moment. Really, for me, I hadn't paid too much attention to it before that in much of a way, but the likes of Vialli were just an incredible talent. These days we look more on the fact that he's been obviously in management here in England in a couple of different positions and other bits and pieces, but he was just first and foremost a really fantastic striker. Got a lot of goals because he was a really fantastic striker. But then for me, the thing that I think is worth really honing in on at the moment is that you don't get many people that across the divides of football and all the tribalism of football just get universally loved. There are going to be some people that pass away that some fan bases think, yeah, but he was a pain in our backside or whatever because he was good against us or whatever. Vialli was just seemingly a really lovely guy. And of course, we don't know that firsthand, but it's what you can tell of the guy whenever you see him speak, whenever anybody else speaks about him now in this kind of moment. Really lovely guy. And this is the other thing, that it's really worth us on the internet providing a podcast like we do, really remembering that this is a guy with family as well. He's not just an icon figure that's way detached and over there. This was a guy. He had a life. He had people that loved him. And, they're obviously mourning his loss, but he had a real big battle, didn't he, with cancer before he died, basically, which was the cause of it all. And he seemingly tried to fight as hard as he could against it, because that's the type of personality he was. That was the expression that other people have said. So, yeah, fair play to him. As you say, rest in power, Mr. Vialli. It's very sad, but he will live pretty much eternally, won't he, because of what he did.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. As I think Jeb quite rightly said, he's spoken of so highly by I think every clip, every soundbite that I've seen, just respected and well loved. So not the greatest start to the year in that respect, but as you say, I think the legacy will live on there. So Gianluca Vialli, what a guy, what a player, what a wonderful human being. From the sadder to, I guess, the slightly more cheerful. Football Manager. Remember that game that we all played? That sometimes we have a good time playing. We've all been playing bits and pieces of it, both on and offline recently, on stream, off stream, however you want to play the game. Enjoy it your way. Not like Burger King. That would be weird. You can't eat Football Manager, Rich. That's a terrible segue. How dare you? You can't eat Football Manager. But we're all playing it. We're all enjoying it to some extent. Kev, we haven't heard from you about your kind of Ukrainian saga for a little while. The journey home, the homeward bound. How's it going in the Ukraine for you at the moment, pal?
So that will be the podcast for this week. Good to catch up with you all. I'll see you next week. It'll be fine. I think, to be honest, Rich, I think with the chat about Viali leading into my stuff, we've gone from the sublime to the ridiculous, is the way that I describe it. So just let me give a very, very brief overhaul of everything. So I'm doing the Homeward Bound Challenge, starting Ukraine, trying to get my way back to England. The only way that I get back to England is if I win the league of the country I'm in. It enables me to go over the border into the next country along the journey to get back to England. Shortest route is Ukraine, Poland, Germany into France to use the Channel Tunnel to get back into England. The catch is, if I don't win the league in 3 seasons in the country I'm in, I have to go out of the country sideways, not forwards towards England, and change the trajectory of the journey. We had the 3rd season in Ukraine yesterday, as we're speaking here on my live stream. The finish of season 3. 2nd season, I finished 2nd to Shakhtar by about 15 points in the end. Second half of the 2nd season was genuinely dreadful from my perspective, and they battered me. This time round, most of the season, we were right there. On goal difference, lots of points along the way, we were top of the table. We didn't play our 2 games against them until quite late in the season because one of them got pushed back because of European clashes. So it meant that it was all sort of up in the air and up for grabs still quite late on. So with about 4 games to go yesterday, we started up the stream and we were 3 points behind them. But if we could find a way that they lose points, we would win it on goal difference if we remained perfect. That was the plan. We played them in the cup final and lost to them on penalties, which was really frustrating. My central defender dribbled a shot towards the goalkeeper and he picked it up off the floor and said, "Thank you very much." And that was the end of the penalty shootout. And so we lost the Ukrainian cup final. We got to the last day of the season in pretty much the same circumstance that we started the stream on. 3 points behind Shakhtar Donetsk. We are Dynamo Kiev. We had a better goal difference than they had. We drew both of our games against them in the league. So head-to-head kind of goes out the window. It becomes on goal difference. We had to win and they had to lose. At about half-time, Shakhtar Donetsk were 4-0 down to Dnipro. And my chat was just bouncing over the thought, all we need is 1 goal and we've got this in the bag. This is ridiculous. How have they fallen so far in this particular game? So Dnipro, God bless them, 4-0 up half time. Then it went to 4-1 and we got slight murmurings of interest over the fact that it was 4-1. 4-2 got a few more murmurings of interest from the chat that it was now 4-2 to Dnipro over Shakhtar. Then I think it was around that point we went 1-0 down ourselves to Vorskla, who were sitting in 3rd position. So we had a tricky game, but then Dnipro were in 4th for Shakhtar. In the end, Rich, it finished 4-4 in the Shakhtar game, and I lost 1-0 and could not get my team to work at all, and we lost the league by 4 points. And my chat had a lovely time. What can I tell you? They enjoyed themselves immensely, and I'm so thrilled as a streamer. My only real reason for being is to create fun and entertainment for my chat, whilst I'm having a heartbroken moment in the corner, basically. I left the stream afterwards and I just sat in my chair for a good couple of minutes going, I don't know what happened. I don't know how we lost that. I don't know why my team didn't show up. I don't know how Shakhtar came back from 4-0 down to get back to 4-4. But all I do know is that I now have to stay in Ukraine until I win this damn league with Dynamo Kiev. And then I can't move forward towards Poland. I have to move sideways to Romania, which adds at least 1 or 2 countries onto my journey time to get back to England. So by 2027, maybe FM27, we might get back to England. Who knows? But for now, we're staying in Ukraine and I'm thrilled about it.
And you can tell. You can tell. You can genuinely tell. I was one of the people in Kev's chat yesterday, keeping up with the final games of the season. Unfortunately, I had to leave the stream at half time in the final game of the season.
It's why I lost.
Exactly. Exactly. My presence is helpful. I find it's not. I ask my partner; she'll tell you it's absolutely not. But I left watching you struggling to find, struggling to score, but also knowing that Shakhtar were 4-0 down. I was like, he's got it in the bag. He's absolutely got it in the bag. And then I just kept checking my social media over the next couple of hours. I was expecting hey, we've done it. We're moving on. We're on to our next country. And then it didn't come, and I started to panic a little bit. And then we had a catch up this morning that I found out exactly what happened.
I was
My heart.
really, really sad, Rich. And that's really sad over a bunch of dots on a screen. But that's what FM can still do to you, as Jeb has a party in his background going.
Yeah,
on
yes.
his disco,
Somebody just follows me on Twitch, just because we're recording a podcast. Someone's dropped me a follow on Twitch. There you go. Thank you.
Jeb's having iteratory disco.
I'm streaming now. I'm actually streaming now at the same time. Like, you don't realise I've got a full chat in here. But I was going to actually say, Kev, you've got obviously the FM20. If it goes where it goes, and you're still, let's say, you've made it to Switzerland or something like that by the time FM24 goes on, is that homeward bound challenge going to carry on until you get back? Is that how that's going to work, or are you going to come with something new? What's the idea of thinking there?
Please, God, no. I don't know. I mean, if I'm still sitting here in October and I'm either still in Ukraine or I've gone backwards somehow and I'm in some far-flung, obscure place miles and miles and countries away from England, then yeah, probably we'll go over to the match engine of FM24, load up the same country that we're in and try and get back to England. I guess I have no idea. But I just want to go home. Jeb.
Yeah, I was now knowing this. I mean, I can't ever put myself in a position where you're playing in any kind of competition in Football Manager and going to the last day of the season and needing a win and not managing to pick one up against a team that you'd potentially be fancied against. I've never experienced that, so I couldn't possibly give you any kind of insight on what that feels like. That's definitely never happened to me. Please don't go back and watch any previous episodes of this podcast to confirm or deny if that's ever happened. Couldn't be me. Couldn't possibly be me.
Andy Carroll. Sorry. Sorry, cough.
Horrible cough you've got there. You need to get that checked out by a legitimate doctor. Yeah, it's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. But as you rightly say, mate, it's on the one hand, it's very, very sad to have come so close. But on the other hand, as you say, it's just more wonderful Ukrainian content for you. I'm excited. I'm enjoying the journey, even though it's tricky. I'm enjoying the journey. I'm enjoying the narrative. I'm enjoying the storytelling aspect of it. So I hope you find your way home eventually. I really, really, really do. And I hope you don't lose your house keys on the way, because that'd be really frustrating. Finally get back. Ah, shocker. Emergency.
My wife will have changed the locks. It's fine.
Exactly. You get in, the dining room table is clear. Oh, but she looks really happy. Sad times. Mate, long may it continue, but hopefully not too long. Let's put it that way. Now, normally we only do one save update a week, but before we went live, Jeb did give us a very, very brief update of what's been happening with him over in Italy. Go on, mate. It's a good one. It's far too good to not talk about this week.
Yeah, so Eduardo Vigani, I think we spoke about before, in Serie B, were top now, I think by 3 points, about 20 games. It just hit the January transfer window. Vigani's got 69 goals. You can say nice if you want to, in 56 games. So it's gone really well. And then all these French clubs start sniffing around him and like, oh, this is going to go well. And then I basically just go, right, his transfer value is about 2 million. I'm just going to put it up to 5. Somebody comes with a 5 million bid straight away. The board goes, yep, accept. Off he goes. He leaves. I'm like, I don't actually have a backup striker in any shape or form. So I'll have a look around. The best part is with him selling him 5 million, the club was in 6 million of debt. They've reduced my wage budget. They've done everything along those lines. As soon as we sold him, all the finance problems are solved. Here you go, have a load of money spent in the transfer window. I was like, no, I'm going to carry on. I'll have a look in the free transfer market. Who's a reasonably good striker? Oh, who's this young whippersnapper? Oh, that's it. Zlatan Ibrahimovic at 42 years old, available on a free. I think I did try to sign him when I was in Serie, but it didn't really work out, obviously. But I decided, I'll go. I'll offer him a contract, see who he wants. Oh, he wants 525 £8 a week, which works out at £27,000 a year. So a graduate starting wage in London. That's what Zlatan wants to come and play for me. And we left it at that. So he's going to come in, and I'm sure I'm going to have an update on how Zlatan takes me to Serie A, maybe, or he gets sent off and does all sorts of nonsense. Who knows, one or the other. But yeah, that's where the update is. Zlatan could be coming to Pescara.
I love that, and for a pittance as well, as you say. It's you know, he'll be playing up front for you, and he's also got qualifications in administration, so he can probably do something in the back office as well for 27 grand a year. I'd expect that. I love that. I absolutely love that. Journeyman striker, Italian football, it's just a match made in heaven, isn't it? It's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful stuff.
You can tell from Zlatan's perspective that he's basically in his own mind helping some lowly team out and being charitable somehow or something to be able to employ the mighty Zlatan even at 42.
I think that's a pretty good analogy for Zlatan's opinion on every team he's ever played for.
But his attributes are still there. Obviously, his pace and acceleration is there, but he's still got 20 natural fitness. He's still got 19 and 17 on finishing and composure. So I'm just like, just feed Zlatan and he'll score, hopefully.
I think you're onto a winner there, mate. If I'm honest with you, I can't see any holes in that plan. I think that's going to work out tremendously for you. Because if I'm honest with you, pal, when it comes to decision-making, tactics, and all those wonderful things in Football Manager, obviously we could all play against the computer, and we all know the computer cheats and is far too clever. When it comes to playing against real-life human beings, however, I know last time we spoke on pod, Jeb, you had, you completely outshone me. I crashed out of a tournament, and you'd qualified for the finals of one. I think since we last sat down and spoke on pod, you've played in the finals of a certain competition. And how did it go?
It was all right, came home with a trophy, just casually scored 10 goals in one semi-final leg, nothing major. No, went really, really well. I ended up with, I think it was 8th pick, and I just, after what we saw with path to the playoffs and Stick and Hakimi being broken on the right wing, I thought, right, I'm going to take this a step further, because Stick played him as a defensive winger. I went, nope, going full inverted winger on attack. And my word, did it work. He finished with 6 assists, 4 goals, and an 8.27 average rating. He was unbelievable. I also drafted Calhanoglu, who I think AJ got given as a gift. He didn't use him correctly. He was brilliant for me. And Barry Aspas is probably one of the best poachers I've ever used, because I think he scored an average of about 4 yards every single time, but he scored lots of goals. We came up against Mozza in our first game, obviously coming up against the gaffer of the playoffs, somebody who technically my boss and seasoned veteran in drafting. Yeah, destroyed him 3-1. It was really easy for us to get done. Then we played Brofist, who's obviously over in the Ukraine. He beat me 2-1, but then his internet went completely, so unfortunately he couldn't make it any further in the tournament. His internet and power and everything went, so it's a little bit of a tainted title. I've said to him, I'm very much looking forward to playing you again, because I think he won all of his group games. He just couldn't qualify for the semi-finals, so they had to draft in Limo instead. Next group game, 4-2, we beat Wald and they went through to the semi-final. AJ beat us in the first leg 2-1, and then the second leg we changed it up, went a little bit more attacking, targeted a few of his players a little bit more, and we had Martinez, the Lissandro, the Man United version of Martinez. We had him in at centre-back, but we actually moved him to be a half-back instead. With my assistant manager kindly sat on the side of my chat. Kev just sat above me. He said, why not move to Paul just a bit further forward and get him to do up and down, box-to-box midfield? So we got him to do that as well, and we moved Aspas over and just over a little bit so Calhanoglu could get through in the channels as his support striker. And we went 4-0 up within about 20 minutes, and some say AJ threw the game after that, but I don't believe it. Taking David De Gea off for a central defender isn't throwing the game. I mean, that David De Gea was having a terrible game, so he needed to take him off. So that's what he did. So we won that leg 10-1, which obviously changed things a little bit, but it it just worked out really nice. And then into the final, we played Gavin, who we played in the group stage as well. We beat him there, and we beat him again. It was 4-2 win. It was quite comfortable in the end. DePaul, Kalanoglu, Gonzalo Martinez as well scored 2 absolute worldies on both volleys. One coming from one side into the box, one from the edge of the area as well. And even like the backup cast came in, and it was quite nice. It was really satisfying. I was kind of a bit in shock. I was like, how have I got here and how am I all the way here? But it's definitely down to Hakimi. Hakimi as a winger is completely broken in this game because he just has all those attributes that just bring it all together really nicely. And he can either score or he can feed Barry Aspas or Kalanoglu, whichever way it goes, and it just worked out perfectly. And we are now the reigning, defending, undisputed Road to Legends champion.
Yeah, you are. Congratulations, mate. That is, I'm delighted for you. Genuinely delighted for you. I was watching some of the. I was dipping in and out the streams. I was watching some of the scores come in via social media. And when I saw the first leg of the semi-final result come in against AJ, I was like, "Oh, this could be tricky. This could be tricky." I've played AJ a couple of times in drafts, and I was like, he knows what he's doing. And then when I saw the second leg score, I was like, something has happened. Something has this. Okay.
And I think, as I said, that 10-1, it feels a bit tainted as well because it takes momentum really more than anything else. It takes the momentum of my squad. They've won 10-1 against Gavin, who I think he's great. I think he won by 1 goal in the end, getting through to into the final himself. So it's a little bit tainted that way. He might have had a little bit more momentum on our side, but I can't decide what happens with other players, unfortunately.
No, and I think regardless of any of that, does anybody else who was taking part in that competition have the trophy, or is that just
exactly?
Is that just there? You go. There you go.
Yeah.
A win's a win in my book. A win's a win. Congratulations, mate. Congratulations. It's lovely, isn't it? I don't like to use the term shared success, but I feel like I'm just enjoying some of it. It's lovely. It's lovely. I appreciate that. And obviously, Kev is your assistant manager as well. What a formidable duo the two of you make. Imagine if you entered a draft competition together. Imagine if you did that. That would be.
Yeah, no. Imagine if we did.
Imagine.
Oh wait, we did. Yeah, we did.
No.
Yes.
No,
yeah, we did. Yeah, yeah. So we took part in Tag Team Turmoil.
We did.
We had a nice conversation for the day before. We had to try and we got told the stipulation. And Kev, can you remind me of what the stipulation was? Because I've forgotten what it was. It was the top 5 nations that were in the World Cup that weren't the big 5 leagues. It was
yeah. So it was about representatives from the leagues in the World Cup. So it was the top 5 leagues that have got the most players at the World Cup, negating the actual top 5. So no England, no Germany, no France, all that kind of stuff. So in the end, we had the likes of MLS, Saudi Arabia, Mexico, was it Poland?
Qatar, and I don't know what the other one was.
Something like that anyway.
Yes.
So that was the stipulation. And so the way that the Tag Team Turmoil works is that the two of you in 2 separate draft groups, you have to pick the same squad as each other. So Jeb is sitting in one draft with one half of the opponents. I'm sitting in the other half with the other half of the opponents, and Jeb and I have to pick the same squad. And then after that, we can do what we like individually with those squads, but we have to pick the same players. So there were 1 or 2 moments where that was a bit problematic. There was one specific pick where Jeb was saying, look for this guy, he's this guy, and I was spelling it wrong, looking for him and couldn't find him. And I literally found him and clicked on his name with 1 second remaining, and that's no word of a lie. It was that close, and that took about 4 years off my life, I think, trying to figure that and why I couldn't find this damn player and where was he in my draft setup when Jeb has already picked him or whatever. So, but other than that, I think we actually did reasonably well working on the fly. We'd got a section of a spreadsheet together about, who we wanted and what them was going to look like. And it worked out pretty well in terms of the actual drafting itself, wouldn't you say, Jeb?
Yeah, I think we ended up with 4 players that weren't on the list, but I think strikers all went really quickly. We found after we picked out Gonzalo Martinez first, just because the success, and he could do free kicks, he could do crossing, he can do corners as well. So that set piece was always going to be important to us. So then we were looking for strikers, and all the big ones went. Gignac was probably the jewel in the crown that we wanted. It wasn't going to happen, so we found a couple of others to bring in instead. And it was, I think, goalkeepers. The budget was too large for the actual pool, so we still had 20 million left. So we just went for, right, you're an expensive goalkeeper, you seem quite reliable, and if you don't work out, you're an expensive goalkeeper and you seem quite reliable. So we had a potential to alternate goalkeepers really easily for us. And Brahimi, the player that you can find, I think he was about 27 million, but he was just there and he could cover a wide range of places. But he started badly for me and then played really well for me. But I think you had an absolute nightmare, didn't you, with him, Kev?
Yeah, couldn't get anything out of him at all. It just didn't work. I changed his position a couple of times, but then we had a number of players that were able to play in two or three different positions, and so moving those little jigsaw pieces around and trying to find the right combination of him in central midfield but him on the left, or vice versa, etc., it sort of changes where you actually find the success. And ultimately we both started in the same formation of 4-2-3-1, and independent of each other both finished in the same formation of 4-4-2, basically, when the 4-2-3-1 wasn't quite as successful as it should have that we expected it to be, let's say. And we had to find a way to just be a little bit more potent. And it kind of worked out. I mean, Benteke was the guy, wasn't he, Jeb? Ultimately, that wasn't really in the starting plans, but came into it, and using him and his physicality as a thing to work off in that sort of final third became a thing. But the other thing was, I mean, we chose Martinez on the right wing primarily, for me anyway, because he was going to be our Hakimi replacement, because we couldn't get Hakimi because he wasn't in the player pool. So we chose Martinez as our number one pick. We got first pick in the draft, took him, and he was great for me. He worked really well, got a bunch of goals, a couple of assists, got two or three double goals in games, etc. So really had a big impact. Same for you, Jeb?
No, because basically I started off dreadfully. I lost my first 3 games and then turned it around and won the next 3. But it was, unfortunately, I got FM'd on 2 of the games, and then I played Limo, and something went wrong, and he scored 4 near post corners against me. And then I had to look into my thingy, and Gonzalo Martinez at 5'8" was marking a tall player. So that's probably where that went wrong. Check your set piece tactics. Just double check who's marking who. So obviously his rating went down that way, but he started to come into it. But like I said, he wasn't amazing. But Benteke, he's got strength, he's got heading, he's got jumping reach, and he'll just hold the ball up for you. He may not finish, he may not score all the goals with his feet, but in that actual player pool, he was the strongest, best header of the ball that was in the pool, and that just worked perfect as a target forward. You just put somebody alongside him or someone to feed off it, and it worked really well. He ended up with an average of 7.61 for me. He played all 7 games in the end, be it sometimes coming off the bench, but he did start 5 of them as well. Other players, the Brahimi I got a tune out of eventually coming off the left wing, and then the one thing that was really strange, my fullbacks were terrible. I played them as wing back on support, exactly the same as Kev was playing, exactly the same fullbacks. Kev got a tune out of them, and I didn't. It was very strange, and I think there was a number of instances that across the tag team turmoil on both sides of the divisions.
Yeah, it's a strange thing watching 2 sets of the same players perform so differently against similar oppositions in a lot of ways, because they're doing the same thing. They've both got the same team as each other, but you get such different results all over the place, which is, that speaks into the randomness of FM quite a lot, and how difficult it is to sort of pseudo control the game. It's kind of really hard to do. I learned one really valuable lesson, actually, and it's worth pointing this one out, I think, especially if you're a new drafter and you go into some of these competitions. Because I've got a bit of experience, not a lot, but a bit. I've come back into drafting having had a bit of a break, which is great. But halfway through one of my games, I made the error of being flustered enough about where I was in the actual match and how it was going or not going at the point that I made a couple of changes in terms of substitutions, but I didn't pause the game to do them. I went in and I made my substitutions at 3 different points within the space of 3 minutes of each other. And then late in the game turned against what I was doing, and I was now down, and I wanted to go in and bring in that second striker up front and change up the way that we play completely in the formation. And now, of course, I couldn't bring anybody else on because I'd used my 3 substitution points in the second moments in the second half, because you can make 5 changes but only in 3 particular spots in the game. And normally in my own saves, I pause all the time and go into my tactics page to make my substitutions and work them properly and all that stuff. And I just got flustered and didn't do what I was supposed to do. And it actually cost me a few points in that particular moment, which was a real valuable lesson to actually just keep control of what you normally do and do those things well, even in this kind of context where you're chatting to the person you're against or whatever it might be. So valuable lesson there. But ultimately, we did okay. You know, first time out as a new tag team, I think we did okay. I finished in 4th. I think you finished 5th. Did you in your group, Jeb?
I think we both finished 4th. We finished 4th
Okay, so
overall,
we finished 4th overall in the tournament itself and learned a bunch. Would happily at any point do it again if I could, personally. I thought it was good fun. And yeah, I mean, you know, just figuring out those stipulations and exactly how your squad fits together is one thing that we can work on a little bit. But yeah, great fun. Again, it's another moment to say, if you're not involved in drafting and you're thinking about it, just do it. Apply for these things. You never know when you might get in. Sometimes you're not going to. There's a lot of people that want to play it, and that's okay. But it's great fun if you can get in.
And it's interesting with the meta with PvP as well. That's 4-2-3-1 seems to be quite common with people, but I think that 4-2-4 or the 4-4-2 with the high wingers, that seems to be coming back, and that's Championship Manager 2 stuff for me. I mean, that's what I used to play all the time on there. So maybe that's coming back like the old school type of way. And I think even in the upcoming playoffs, obviously they've already happened by the time you hear this, but I know there's a few people going for that 4 up front, going all the way with it. I think the other thing that you said as well, it is really important to pause it, because if you don't actually pause the game, you can't make those substitutions will just disappear if something else happens in the game. I had that frustration about 3 or 4 times. It's just those little differences between playing a normal save and playing PvP, because obviously the game continues on regardless unless you actually click pause. And then also the amount of times I sat there and just like, come on game, come on. Oh, I've got to click play now. I forgot about that. So it doesn't automatically do it when you've done confirm changes. So yeah, so there's some etiquette to learn as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You know, and that's definitely something I've never done either. Definitely couldn't catch me doing that. 100%.
I definitely also didn't shout down the microphone, that's how you use Calhanoglu to AJ when I went 4-0 up against him.
Yeah, just a degree of humility sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes. I personally, I think the tag team turmoil, what a fantastic concept for a tournament as well. Watching the 2 of you drafting in sync as well was brilliant. It was an experience, but it was a brilliant one. Watching you both do everything simultaneously. It's worth pointing out. I don't know if it's ever come up before. It's worth pointing out. Obviously, we've had the Tag Team Turmoil tournament, but I think the reigning champions are friends of the pod. Shout out Alistair and How We Roll Owen. They are the reigning tag team champions. They do have an upcoming title defense against. They do against quite a formidable tag team. It's me. Hello, remember me? And former host of this podcast, Tony Jameson. It was arranged a little while ago, but we had to postpone due to things like Christmas and Owen getting married, possibly to Ali. I don't know. I've not seen the photos, but if he could do a lot worse. Ali, you're a catch and a beautiful human being. But yeah, there is going to be at some point. Now we're in the new year. That's going to happen. Although having watched the two of you kind of drafting in sync, and knowing that things like spellings are going to come into the play, I think Tony and I are going to have two completely different squads by the end of it. Spelling, forward planning, and synchronicity, not any of our strong suits. So that's going to be an experience for everybody involved. But I'm massively looking forward to that as well. I really, really enjoy the concept. I love the concept. I think it's a really, really interesting one. And in a game like Football Manager, where you can play it however you like, and there's so many variations on that, to have something like that, which is it's not been done before, to my knowledge. I've not seen a PvP competition ran that way before, so I think it's
big shout out to the guys that are running it, because it's an interesting concept. There's also a singles title as well, which Wickdiv currently has, Abby. So they've been brilliant. They won the World Heavyweight FM Championship over the Christmas New Year break, so congrats to them as well. But it's a great setup. It's a great concept to sort of merge wrestling and Football Manager, because there's quite a lot of FM community that are connected to wrestling in some form, in terms of as a viewer. Some, as we know, maybe as a participant in wrestling matches as well, but most of us just as a viewer. But yeah, it's really good. So well done to everybody involved in that setup.
Absolutely, 100%. So again, it's an exciting competition. I'm just excited. I'm looking forward to seeing again how it develops over the next over the range of kind of this game cycle. So
you do realise, if in any way you win your tag team title opportunity, you've got a big bullseye on your head.
Yeah,
we are
the lovely
aware.
fences coming for you. Yeah.
We are.
Yeah. I'll allow it. I'll absolutely allow
it. Tell him,
Kev. Well, ooh, what a rush! Oh, there you go. There you go. Hold on, just where's my dictaphone? Potential for episode title. Ooh, what an Ian Rush. There we go. That's on camera now. Nobody steal that, please, until I've got the chance to use it. Fantastic. I might just use it this week out of principle. There you go. Do it. That's how forward planning works on this podcast. So there you go. Wonderful PvP experiences, and hopefully loads more of those to talk about this year as well. Excellent stuff. Now, moving on, we haven't done it for a little while. Last year, we kind of opened up a section of the podcast to you guys, to the viewers, to the listeners, and we thought, we said, hey, what do you guys want to know? Ask us some questions. And last time we did this, we had loads of excellent responses, and it was really, really great fun to sit down and talk about them and answer them. We've done the same this week, and we've had responses, some of which I've been bullied in, which is excellent. Excellent stuff. Thank you very much, everybody. But we'll ask the questions. We will ask the questions because that's who we are as people, because I believe in democracy, and I believe in a system where you, the audience, get to interact with us no matter how mean you're being. Lovely questions. We'll start with, so we've just mentioned how we roll Owen. They're now married. Owen's asked us, whose content are you enjoying this year? If you guys want to have a think about it for a second, I'm happy to start here. I'm happy to get the ball rolling. Owen, I am enjoying everybody's content but yours. I think everybody's doing a really, really wonderful job this year, apart from you. So if you could sort that out, I'd massively appreciate it. Owen, I'm joking. You're doing a really, really good job. No, I think everybody's up their game this year. I think there's quite a few newer creators that have moved into the space or kind of become more prominent over the last kind of 6 months or so. Start of a new game cycle. Always kind of puts people's content in that shop window. I'm just going to say it. I've been really enjoying this year. Why Callum? I think Callum's having a great time at the moment. I think his streams have been excellent. He's been on panels for the playoffs. He was on Drafts and Crafts as we were recording this last night, and we learned he is an expert at pouring drinks. I think Yeah, I've really been enjoying Callum this year. Really been enjoying Callum. It was really nice to get to meet him in Nottingham at FMT Live. He's just a nice man that makes just really nice FM content. So yeah, shout out to Callum and everything that he's doing. That's what I've been enjoying, Owen. Jeb, what about you, pal? Who are you liking this year?
I've not watched that much content this year, unfortunately. I've only seen, obviously, obviously, we are 7 days into the year, so I'm going to go off this rather than this game cycle. I've not watched too much, but I think participants in the playoffs have been exciting to watch. Shout out to Salty B for probably the moment of the draft, where in pick number 2 he drafted Koulibaly, and then he got to pick number 4 and he was rapidly searching for Koulibaly. I was like, "Where is he? I can't find him." You can see the panic on his face. He got to like 5 seconds left, and he was like, "Oh, I'll go for somebody else." That was very entertaining on that side of things. Usual hits. I mean, Clates I always enjoy his Saturday morning content, Sunday as well. Same with Second Yellow Card as well. I'm enjoying his Budapest save that he's got going, building a nation, seeing if that one can work out as well. And one of the biggest things that I've enjoyed more than anything over probably the last 3-4 years has been Tifo Football. Tifo Football's amazing content, like the stuff that they put out, the cartoon, the animations, and all the stuff that comes with it. I think they released a book as well over Christmas. I think that I've got my eye on getting that as well, because that'll be a perfect little dining table book, that type of thing, just to have a flick through and how to watch football on those lines. Tifo's been outstanding in many lines of covering different things. I think their stuff about the World Cup, both sides of it, so they did an actual history of Qatar, just general history as well, and then went into the football side of things. But then also they did I think they went through 13 or 17 countries to get to Qatar, and they did a full vlog on that. That was brilliant content as well, just going to old football stadiums, meeting old players, etc. They had all of their camera equipment stolen along the way as well, so they had to cover that. I think Tifo's a big thing that I do consume quite a lot of.
Oh, excellent. Kev, what about you, pal? Who have you got your eye on this year? Who are you enjoying?
So again, like Jeb, a little bit. I don't watch an awful lot of FM content, if I'm totally honest. I feel like I've got enough of a handle on how to do this, whatever this is, as either a YouTuber or now as a streamer, that I don't often go trying to find new things or ideas or what other people are doing necessarily. I just go for entertainment more than anything else a lot of the time. And I tend to go off and do other things other than FM when I'm not doing my own stuff. But there are a few people that I do check out. And so on the YouTube side of things, I very much stopped YouTube myself a few months ago and haven't really been back too much to it in terms of FM. But one guy that I genuinely don't understand why he's not one of the biggest completely by size and reputation and love of the community compared to everyone is just FM Llama. I love Llama's stuff. His YouTube stuff is so unique and so interesting because he's unique and interesting and different, but just such a lovely guy as well. But go and check out his YouTube stuff. It is so much fun. He's got such a great sense of humor as Llama. So I really love his stuff. So big shout out to everybody on the manager's seat, both Stinger and JDFM as well. So they're doing a great job, but I love Llama. So go check out his stuff. But mostly, if I'm watching any form of FM content, it's on Twitch, just in the background while I'm doing other things or whatever. And there's a few people that I could shout out. I mean, there's this young whippersnapper just starting out that you might have heard of called Dr. Benji. He needs a bit of a boost, so we'll help him and give him a shout out. But genuinely, I sit in his streams. I don't always interact very much. There's a lot of people in there. They all want his attention. That's all absolutely fine. So I just have him on. But he's interesting to listen to because he's got a real interesting perspective on the game, on the community, on his position in it, on the drafting scene, on lots of stuff. And you can often get lots of interesting snippets from him. So I'm often sitting in there when he's streaming. To be totally honest, the two of you guys, since we've connected up, I've sat in your streams more than I used to, which has been really fantastic, as much as I can. And I've really enjoyed being in there. You know, smaller communities, but a really interesting, fun time. Different types of streamers as well from Jeb and Rich, which is really interesting. So go and check those two out as well. The other guy that I spend most time in is he who must not be named. In the old gaffer of the FMT, Tony. I really love his streams. I think it's got a great feel on a an evening, just in those sort of later hours, just winding down the day a little bit and having Tony on in the background and chatting to him a little bit. So I love to do that. But those are my main things, other than drafting shows and other bits and pieces that I try and keep up with. But yeah, go check those guys. Llama specifically on YouTube, I think, is an absolute superstar. Go check these two guys out, Rich and Jeb. They're doing great stuff. Dr. Benji needs all the help, doesn't he? Really, bless him. So go give him. And Tony, I really enjoy his streams. So that's me.
No, I think that's a very valid point. You know, Ben's pushing for affiliate at the moment. I think we can all get him over the line together somehow we can do it. And as you say, you know, we do joke about Tony a lot on the pod, but his content's just,
and quite right,
and rightly so, and rightly there was a lot to joke about, pal. But content wise at the moment, he's doing bits. I think he's on the cusp of, you know, partner numbers at the moment, and you can see why. You can absolutely see why. He's having a great time playing the game. I think his British Steel Challenge is excellent.
It's insane.
It's fantastic. It's everything. It's perfect Tony content.
It's the only thing that's going to go longer than Kev's save. So that's true.
Exactly. They are going to be battling it out together. 4, maybe 5 seasons in here now. He might be about to win a league title. Who knows? He's only got all of the other ones to win. It's been great. It's really, really, really good. It's so unlikely, if you're watching or listening to this pod, that you are not also consuming Tony's content on Twitch. But if you're not, please do. It's really, really, really good. And also shout out to other former host of podcast, or one of the other former hosts of podcast, Matt. If you've been following Matt on Twitter, you would have seen his updates. He was doing a journeyman save. Now he's attempting I'm not even going to. No, he wasn't doing a journeyman. Sorry, he was doing the pentagon. He was doing the pentagon challenge. He's now doing, and I'm not even going to attempt the name of the shape that he's now referencing. Essentially, if you look up a 29-sided shape, he's doing that tagon, where he's going to try and win the MLS with all 29 MLS teams, because he's a maniac, and I'm really, really looking forward to watching Matt lose his mind on Twitter over the remainder of the game cycle as he attempts to do that. So that's always great fun. It's a Twitter thread, but you know, just the effort he puts in, just the graphics, everything about it, it's textbook Matt. So give that a little check out as well.
Rich, can I add one more thing in?
Oh, please, yeah, by all means, mate.
And it's remiss of me not to have put it in my original section, because it is genuinely true. But having mentioned everybody that's been part of FMT, FM girl Alice has been going through some stuff recently, which has been really interesting to hear about and read about in terms of some of the posts that they've put on in Twitter, etc. But their streams are really unique. She's got a real different style about her compared to a lot of people, but that's not the thing that I want to talk about. Again, it's really remiss of me, because it is genuinely true. I still say her 433 comic is one of the best bits of FM content out there. Every few days, whenever she releases one, it's absolutely fantastic. Just go and find her on Twitter and follow the content that they put out there on their 433 comic book strip, because it is still some of my favorite FM content, definitely.
And the streams are wonderful, bruv. Yo,
yeah,
I have to add that on every single time. Yeah, every single time. I chat in a chat. I'll add bruv and yo on, because I think that's what you're supposed to say. She doesn't say fam. I learned that this week, or blood. So I'm getting there with it.
Yes, bruv, blood fam. That's the one. That's all you need. Exactly.
Friendo.
Exactly. Friendo. Exactly. Yeah. Alice, when it comes to 433 comic, Alice doesn't miss. It's consistently brilliant. So yeah, shout out Alice. You're doing the Lord's work, friendo, and we appreciate it enormously. It's genuinely one of the things that whenever it pops up on my Twitter feed, I'm always excited to read it. So it's just so good because it's just everything is so true. There's never any
As a side to Alice, obviously big fan of Alice and started streaming because of Alice. Tim Lewis this week during the FM playoffs draft, he didn't get enough recognition for dressing as Elvis with a puppet, with an Elvis puppet next to him. Slightly worried about like where his mental state was because he was chatting away to that puppet a little bit too much. I mean, this is a guy who didn't drink before we started doing the FM playoffs. He's had a few shots on various drafts and various things along those lines. We're hoping and now he's gone from murder ball to king ball, but this aggressive team or aggressive style of football he wants to play, it seems to be bleeding into himself as well, and the arrogance is getting to Owen levels, and I think that's the only way we could say that's where we are with it.
That's the top of the scale. That is the top of the FM arrogant scale. There he is, king of the castle. But there's somebody's coming for the throne apparently, and it's Tim Lewis. Fantastic stuff. Yeah, he went all out in the draft, and it was an experience. Definitely a fun one. Don't get me wrong, but an experience watching it for sure. Right, who else wanted to know things? We had question from Craig. Hiya, Craig. What is each host's favorite personal save of all time, and what made it so special? Again, good question. Good question. Again, I'm happy to. I'll kick off because I've got one in mind. It's not necessarily. I wouldn't say it's my favorite of all time, but it's one that does hold a very, very special place in my heart. Back on FM15, I had an Everton save. I don't know why I chose Everton, but the reason it's so special for me is that save was born of basically literally born of my son, because my son was born in 2015, and my son was not, and to an extent still is not, 7 years later, a great sleeper. So I spent a lot of time, first year of my son's life, being very, very awake. And being very, very awake of an evening and needing something to do while my wife slept generally bled into me lying in bed and playing Football Manager, waiting for my son to wake up every 45 minutes and needing something. So I played, I think it was over the course of that year, I played a really, really long-winded Everton save and just really, really enjoyed it. Like I say, there was no specific reason for me choosing Everton. I wasn't, it wasn't like I'm desperate to play with at the time players like Ross Barkley, although in hindsight I probably was, let's be honest. But yeah, I think it's just the emotional connection, knowing that I was doing that alongside being a new dad and trying to figure out all the things that come along with that. Yeah, it was just a save that I played at a really, really interesting time in my life. And I don't think I played very much of it when the sun was up. So it was mostly, after bedtimes. It was kind of, everyone went to sleep, Mrs. O would go to sleep, would try and get the baby down. She was exhausted and she'd just fall asleep straight after the baby at most evenings. So I just lie there, tinkering around with save, messing around with tactics, and just having, and generally speaking, just having a nice time. Yeah, it was a fun save at a very, very interesting time in my life. So that one always will hold a very, very special place in my heart. Don't think I won a huge amount. I think maybe a couple of FA Cups along the road, but yeah, it was just a nice one. It was just a nice one, I think. A nice time at Everton. That's a weird sentence, but it was good. We had good times. Kev, what about you, my friend? Have you any that stand out in your mind from years gone by?
So yeah, I've got two for you. One before making content on Football Manager, and then one since having made content on Football Manager as well. So the first one was many, many years ago, sometime in the 90s. Can't remember exactly which one, but there was an occasion, there was a moment in the game where you could actually run out of leagues to play, in terms of time and how many seasons you played, because they could only bring in so much data into the game, etc. So I actually completed the game at one point and did 30 seasons. Can't remember too much about it, but know that I did, and kind of felt surreal to get that far in, and then look back on the managerial record of like 19 league titles or whatever it was that I achieved at the time. It was great, but that was the first one many, many years ago, before it basically became never ending, seemingly, at this point. The other one for me was one that I did on YouTube. I think it was in 20, I want to say. Maybe 19, can't remember, 20, I think. My first iteration of Rolling in the Isles, which was my British Isles Journeyman series. Start with no qualifications and try and find your way up to the top echelon of English football, basically, and try and get to a Champions League final would be the end point of the series, whether you win or lose it, basically. So that was the one. But the reason it was special to me at that point is it gave me the first moment of real understanding that I could potentially go somewhere as a content creator. It gave me the Loki Doki shout out during that period of time on my YouTube channel that, blew my channel up in that sense. It gave me interaction with a wider group of people because of that. And it enabled me to find my route into the wider FM community in a lot of ways as well, through various connections. And it was just that moment in time where I just sat and thought, actually, something can be done with this. I don't know what it is. And now, subsequently, it's changed, and I'm not doing YouTube anymore. I'm doing streaming instead. But yeah, there was a moment in there where it just felt this was good. It was good content. I think it can always be improved on, obviously. But it's also something that if I succeed in the challenge and get home to England this time round in FM23, and there's no guarantees of that, I might bring it back on the stream for 24, maybe, because I enjoyed the actual process of the British Isles Journeyman series so much. So yeah, that's mine.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. And it's there gets that positivity that it's you're going to be able to make that content in FM24 and not still be in some far off European country trying to find your way back.
And I did get to a European Champions final in my first iteration, and I lost it. So I've still got something I can achieve with the series.
Unfinished business. Love that. Jeb, what about you, pal?
14 or 15, I had Burnley one year and Birmingham the next, and did really well with them, but I can't remember the details. So I'm going to ones that are a little bit more recent. 19, I started with Morecambe, and I got to League One with them, and I couldn't really go much further because budgets just didn't allow. I couldn't get the stadium any bigger, and we were just running out. And to be fair, we were second in League One, and I think I had a disagreement with the board, and Northampton came in for them, so I went to Northampton instead. It was a strange move over, and Joey Barton took over at Morecambe, and he lost every game for the rest of the season. They went down. It was almost like beautiful irony. But then Northampton, we developed a load of youth players. We got up to the Premier League, and I bought 37-year-old Luis Suarez on a free transfer, but I couldn't register him for the league, so he could only play in the FA Cup. And in that FA Cup, he scored in every single round, including the final, to win the FA Cup for Northampton, which just worked out beautifully. It was like special teams like you have in like NFL, but he only played the FA Cup. That's what he came in for. And then the other side was Stoke was in the Championship, so we went to Stoke in FM20, and that was a lot of fun. And we had a reasonably decent side. We had Rhian Brewster up front on loan, and we brought in João Pedro from Watford, and they were two strikers. We had several other players, I can't remember the names. We got to the League Cup final. We got to the League Cup final. We were playing Arsenal, who were top of the Premier League, and in the first 20 minutes we went 4-0 up against them, and I was like, crap. I didn't expect this. I thought we've got here, we scraped here. I remember we played Tottenham in the semi-final. We beat them like in the last minute of extra time, and so we got to Arsenal, went 4-0 up, and we ended up winning 7-0 against Arsenal in the League Cup final. And that was quite a thing. And I remember while the cup final was going, it was one that I streamed. I had probably my first big raid, like my first 100+ raid as well. So it was quite nice. I was fully decked out in suit and everything because it was a cup final, because they're the rules apparently. So yeah, it was that Stoke save. I think João Pedro, Ryan Brewster. I'm trying to think of the other players that we had in there, but it was a slowly developing Stoke thing. The issue I've had with streams and recently is I think Bournemouth's probably the longest. Last season was the longest I've gone into a thing on a Twitch stream. I just didn't have the time, unfortunately. I only got about 3-4 seasons into that Stoke save, but I would have liked to have continued it further. But once a new game comes out, you have to delete all content that previously existed because no one gives a crap about it anymore because there's a new game out. So there we are.
Excellent stuff. You know, I enjoy. You know, I remember I've watched quite a lot of your Bournemouth, Dave. That was great fun. So yeah, like I say, it's time constraints are arguably one of the most difficult things when it comes to streaming.
Yeah, Bournemouth actually started in Sweden where I won the league. So much like Kev. Oh no, he didn't, did he, last year?
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
I remember that. Thank you.
Yeah. Again, I found winning the league in Sweden quite easy, but yeah, that's just me. That's who I am as a person. There we go. Wonderful. Excellent. There we go. So that nice little content walk down memory lane. We've got a question here from Tony Jameson, long-time listener, first-time caller. Hi, Tony. It says, Rich, after seeing Jebaru join Kev as someone who's lifted PvP gold, when do you feel is a good time to consider doing the same? Win the tag belts with me, Tony. Let's just do that. There you go. Easy. And if you can't do that, then technically my PvP failures are your fault. So
fair.
Plus, I've heard as host of this podcast, you have to be a slow burner when it comes to PvP as well. You can't be good for at least a year. I learned it from you, Tony. So there you go. Yeah, we'll win the tag belts off Ali and Ogham, and everything will be fine. We'll do that together. That'll be good. And our final question is a two-parter from friend of the pod, Dave Goodyear. Hiya, Dave. Hope you're well, mate. Dave says, what do I want to know? How's Mexico, Rich? Cheers, Dave. On a more serious note, when is the first FMT versus the community draft taking place? That's a two-part question. I think we'll probably talk about part one of that question on another podcast because, you know, before I can talk about managing in Mexico, I'll probably have to have a go at it, having never done it before. Because it's, I'd imagine it's really, really easy. Second question, FMT versus the community draft. What an excellent question. And in my opinion, what an excellent idea. We should probably do one of those. I think that would be a nice thing to do at some point. Watch this space, Dave. Watch this space, because I think it'd be a fun thing to do. We will pick an evening and we will do a draft. Obviously, you know, some of us, well, all three of us in some vague capacity, two of us significantly more so than the other. Again, for reference, that's them two. That's Jeb and Kev. They are very, very heavily involved in the FM playoffs, across Path of the Playoffs and the actual playoffs and the competition themselves. So finding a bit of time when potentially all of us are free, we will look for some dates and we will definitely do one. We'll do a draft. We'll get some people in. Anybody who wants to take part can take part. It's not ranked. It's not particularly serious. We'll pick a draft pool. We'll pick some budgets and we'll have a good time of an evening. We'll do that, shall we? Does that sound good to you? I think that sounds good to you. Dave,
Absolutely.
would you like to be in it? I'm assuming you would. So yeah, we'll pick a day. Keep an eye on the socials. So we'll announce it on Twitter. We'll put it on our FMT Discord. Both of those things will be linked below this podcast. If you're watching on YouTube or however you are consuming pod, there will be links to all of those things contained in there. But yeah, I think a nice community draft would be a bit of fun. And hey, maybe I'll win. Who knows?
I know the draft pool as well. It's players only named Rich, Kev, or Jeb. That's basically what we're going to go for.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Enjoy all of those. Enjoy all of those players because some of them might be good. Lovely. Thank you, audience, for your questions. I appreciated most of them. Really, really good of you. Right. Well, I don't know how you guys feel, but I think that's a podcast.
And I still think that's a great catchphrase.
Hey, there you go. Get that on a t-shirt. I don't know why I'm saying that to you. If that's ever going to happen, it's probably my responsibility, isn't it? Yeah. Lovely. All right, cracking. Well, yeah. Hey, I've had a really, really nice time this week. It's been lovely to be back. Jeb said at the beginning of the record, he's been looking forward to it. I've been looking forward to it, and that has absolutely flown by. Before we get going, I think we'd do the traditional. Where can we all find each other online or emotionally? Either or, both work. Jeb, we'll start with you, pal. If people want to keep up to date with your adventures in Italy and all the other wonderful things that you do on Twitch, including some quite wonderful GTA roleplay, where can they find you doing that, pal?
Jebaroo on Twitch and the Jebaroo on Twitter.
Wonderful. Easy as that. Easy as that. If you're not following both those things, what are you doing with your life?
I don't have a schedule, so I can't really say when I'm going to be on. But I'll let you know on Twitter, and then you go to Twitch from there. That's probably the easiest way.
There you go. There you go. It's a system. It's a system. Kev, if people would like to watch you dominating the Ukrainian Football League, where can they find you doing that?
So you can find me at the United City FM, both on Twitter and Twitch. I'm on Twitch most weekday afternoons, 3 till 5 p.m. I am in great pain over what Shakhtar are doing to me. Come and help me figure that one out next week at some point. I'm usually in these kind of situations when I'm on different playoffs and other things, I shout out the podcast and give that, but I kind of don't need to this time. Continue watching the podcast because we're great and it's lovely to do. So it's fantastic. But yeah, come and find me at the United City FM. Love to have you along.
Wonderful, wonderful. As for me, at Rich Owens FM on Twitter and twitch.tv/Rich Owens FM. Come and find me on both those platforms doing football management of some description. We have a good time. We have a very, very, very good time. If you like to watch a middle-aged man having an existential crisis, then have I got a Twitch channel for you? Brilliant. There we go. That's us, I think. Lovely to be back. I've had a brilliant time. Thank you all for watching, and we hope to see you all very, very, very soon for another episode of Football Manager Therapy. Take care. Love you lots. Bye.